Welcome to Juicebox Sports. I'm your host Mario, and today, first and foremost, I would like to announce I just made a special acquisition, and I'm happy to announce that I am proud owner of America's team, the Green Bay Packers. Feels great to own a portion of my childhood team, and that still has a space in my heart despite of the results that they've been putting in lately. That's just life, and that is football. Anyways, in other news, Carlos Beltran, is he a Hall of Famer? When MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred discussed his punishments for the Astros sightseeing scheme in February 2020, he took a moment to address the more abstract consequences and how long they might last. I think if you look at the faces of the Houston players, they went out there publicly addressing the issue. They have been hurt by this, and they will live with questions about what went down in 2017 and maybe 2018 for the rest of their lives. Manfred said at the press conference, and frankly it is rare for any offense to have many punishments that you have to live with for the rest of your life. The last 2 seasons have seen their share of heckles and boos, and skeptical looks for former Astros. But it would not be until later this year that the rest of your life questions, will really begin to take shape. When Carlos Beltran is on the ballot for the Hall of Fame. Beltran's presence on the ballot this November will give voters a new ethical dilemma, just as they wash their hands for an old me. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, and all the attendant questions about their participation in the steroid era will be gone, as all 3 players exhausted their eligibility on the writers' ballot without getting elected. A-Rod and Manny Ramirez remain, but their cases are different in their deal in fewer shades of gray. Both players, after the league began to police steroids more strictly and ended up with the related suspension. On the records, a ballot without Bonds and Clemens should in theory create space for arguments and analysis that have been crowded over the last decade, with steroid discussions sucking all the oxygen from the proper room. Yet the big picture themes of morality, cheating individually, responsibility in a terrible system, and the character clause, Beltran ensures those will stick around. There's little doubt that Beltran would have been a clear Hall of Famer without the Astros scandal. Not a first ballot slam dunk, necessarily, but all but guaranteed. As an inductee within a few years, his career WAR numbers sit smack dab in the middle of those 4 inducted center fielders. 70.1 career B WAR compared to an average of 71.6 for Cooperstown center fielders and 44.4 B WAR over a 7-year peak versus an average of 44.7. But of course, there is no without Astros scandal, and so it's where voters will find themselves next winter, looking at some of the same questions that have made the election process so messy over the past decade. Now with a different lens. It's easy to argue that the cheating is cheating, to draw a line and refuse to cross it, yet the hall is already full of little contradictions. Here, reminds of context and a baseball long tangled history with trying to brush up against the line without destroying it. It's certainly true that amphetamines are different from steroids, and that something like throwing an illegal spitball is different from using illegal technology for sign stealing. But the fact that those situations exist to make comparison between first place demonstrates the messiness of this issue. This is a matter of distinguishing between shades of gray. The only line that baseball has this side is truly uncrossable of Hall. Is that of being banned for life by MLB? And I think everything short of that requires a stronger case to keep out, and Beltran presents a situation unlike any other voter have seen in long time, if ever. So the context is, it's easy to see how some of the arguments that fit for steroid discussion might work here. Other clubs didn't get caught using the technology to sign steals. It was banned by the league, but allowed to grow unchecked until it blew up. In the commissioner's face, there is some responsibility not just for those who broke the rules, but those who allow them to do so. It is larger than one team. Even in the limited context for those Astros, it is necessarily larger than one player. Yet at the same time, Houston's actions were more craven and more egregious than any other known example, and Beltran specifically was reported one of the key architects. The rules were clear, even if other teams were trying to bend them too, and the Astros broke them in a jaw-dropping, sport-shifting way that justifiably angered opponents and fans. What is the appropriate punishment for Beltran in a sense is the only player who was actually punished because he was already retired by the time the news scandal came out. He had a new job to lose. He was fired as the manager of the Mets. There has been some measures of forgiveness for others. Astros manager A.J. Hinch, who lost his job, was suspended for the game for a year. Was hired by the Tigers before the 2021 season. Yet the club, while Beltran had the murkier, more abstract responsibility of being a veteran player, identified as the leader of the scheme. Would that forgive extend to the Hall? Would it extend to the first ballot? Ultimately, as Manfred said in 2020, Beltran and the rest of the Astros players will have to live with these questions for the rest of their lives. And that will start in a far more concrete sense than it has been so far. With the ballot this November, it's Super Bowl weekend. Well, not yet. We're 1 week away. But just because the Packers aren't in it doesn't mean I'm going to talk about it. Honestly, I got the Bengals winning plus 13 over the Los Angeles Rams. And that is because my boy, Mike Daniels, former Packers, he's playing with the Bengals, so I gotta go for him. I gotta root for him, And besides, I can't root for a guy who played for the Lions I gotta make sure they lose. And he's all like Matthew Stafford's also related to Clayton Kershaw, who's a Dodger, and who's from Dallas. I mean, I like Dallas, but I don't like him. That's really it, man. You know? But congratulations. I'm very grateful that the Rams defeated the Niners. Because Jimmy Garoppolo is a bad. He's not a great quarterback. And neither were the Niners. They weren't really a good team. You know what? That's really it. Go Pack Go. Thank you for listening to the Juicebox Sports Podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by Raise Energy. Check us out on Instagram at JuiceboxSportsHTX. Till next time.